Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. To the Auburn fans who've been rocking with the boys the last couple of years, many of y'all know this is an episode that I absolutely hate to do. But we're sitting here on October 1st, and it's a conversation that needs to happen. How much more leash are we going to give Hugh Freeze at Auburn? Now, when you want to talk about a coach on the hot seat, I firmly believe there's a lot of different conversations you need to have. Now, number one, and we all know this, Hugh Freeze getting paid a lot of money to do one thing, and that is win football games on Saturdays, right? I don't care how you do it. I don't care what the process is, as long as the results are there. And let's just cut to the chase. The results haven't been there, right? You're 14 and 16 in 2.5 years. You're 5 and 13 in SEC play. The results are not lining up with the resources that Hugh Freeze has been given at this Auburn program. But more importantly than that, the reason I've been such a heavy Hugh Freeze defender over the last 12 months, I've always liked the process. I always thought that, hey, this program is going in the right direction under Hugh Freeze. And as he continues to get more talent to come to this program, the results will eventually follow suit on the football field. We're sitting here October 1st, and there are some real conversations we need to have regarding what the future of this Auburn program looks like under Hugh Freeze, because you're starting to question just how much better is this thing going to get. It felt like in year two, that team did not maximize the talent it had on its roster. And I ain't getting up here and saying that it was one of the best rosters in college football, but it certainly was a good enough roster to go out and make a bowl game. And so we're looking at 2025. I've been very vocal. I think this is a top 15 roster in the sport. It's not playing even close to being a top 15 caliber team on the football field every single Saturday. Want to get into some reasons why. It's time to start having the conversation of, hey, how long is this leash going to be? Because there are some fundamental problems that you're seeing rise up within this program. Before we get into it, as always, I think the most important part of this conversation is just hearing from the Auburn fans as well. What are the vibes and what are the takes that the Auburn fans have regarding how long the leash is for Hugh Freeze and his tenure at Auburn? Please let it fly in the comment section. Obviously, this is not an episode I love doing, especially after defending Hugh Freeze the way I did for the last 2 years. But I do appreciate the Auburn fans and the amount of support this fan base has consistently shown the boys, whether we're winning, whether we're losing. So appreciate you guys. Let it fly in the comment section. Without further ado, let's get into it. Now, I want to start with this. Should we start questioning the talent evaluation that Hugh Freeze has? Because it's one thing to go out and get quote unquote good football players that are worth a lot, whether it's on the high school recruiting trail, whether it's in the transfer portal, but it's a whole nother thing to make sure you're getting good players that are going to come into your program and play good for you over the next couple of years. And that's something that is becoming a little bit of a problem specifically at the quarterback position, right? You missed with Peyton Thorne and you kind of just ran it back in 2024 because you didn't really want to go out and get a quarterback in the portal. But we always knew in 2025, the quarterback that Hugh Freeze decides to go with was going to be one of the most, if not the most important decision that he's made during his Auburn tenure. And he decides to go with Jackson Arnold. And look, when Jackson Arnold committed to Auburn way back in the winter, I said, "Hey, I commend the I hate to say it, like the bravery, right? Jackson Arnold did not play very good at Oklahoma. There were some extenuating circumstances during his time at Oklahoma, but what I appreciated was, all right, you're betting on some upside. You're betting on your ability to bring in a quarterback that is clearly struggling with his confidence. Say, hey, we going to allow you to put it together for us in 2025. This is the third straight year. I mean, we're 0 for 3 on our quarterback evaluations because you clearly missed with Jackson Arnold, right? And I know there are some other issues with this Auburn offense, and we'll get into those issues because I think that's another piece that's playing into this conversation. You knew you brought in Jackson Arnold and said, hey, we have to rebuild this kid's confidence. That hasn't taken place. There's no question about it. And the bigger frustration that I think a lot of Auburn fans should have is go look at the rest of the SEC and go look at some other transfer portal quarterbacks and go look at the seasons and the way that they're playing. I'm talking about obviously John Mateer at Oklahoma, but I'm talking about Bo Pribula at Missouri, talking about Joey Aguilar at Tennessee, talking about Trinidad Chambliss at Ole Miss. Well, I guess the point that I'm trying to make is you might have paid the most for Jackson Arnold out of any of those quarterbacks that we just listed, but you clearly missed. And there were plenty of Fernando Mendoza at Indiana. You can look outside of the SEC and find a lot of other quarterbacks that are playing some really good football that are probably getting paid a little bit less. Right? This was a big decision. You went with Jackson Arnold. You knew you were hitching your job to the way Jackson Arnold was going to play for you in 2025, and you flat out missed. Right? And that's one of the conversations I want to have, because you bring in, you can have this conversation for a lot of different players on this Auburn roster. How about Xavier Chaplin? How about Mason Murphy? Both tackles that have struggled massively over the last couple of weeks in pass protection. I mean, you might have thought Xavier Chaplin was the best tackle in the portal. A lot of people did. It's clearly not the way it's playing out. Very similar conversation for Mason Murphy. What I look at, the biggest concern with the process that Hugh Freeze is going through is that he has the funds. There is plenty of money that this program is using to go out and get players, quote unquote, good players. The biggest problem now is that you've seemingly consistently missed on the guys that you have brought into this program. That's a problem. You can have all the money in the world, but if you consistently miss on your evaluation of talent, that ain't going to be good enough. And that's one of the problems. Hey, I loved what Hugh Freeze was doing on paper. I really did like. But if you consistently miss on your evaluations and you put out performances like Auburn's doing, it's a problem. How about the second part of this is this? You're missing on talent, but you're also like, I'm not grading this Auburn coaching staff out specifically on offense as a top half coaching staff in the SEC. So if you're missing on your talent evaluations, you're also a poorly coached team. It's a really bad recipe, right? And it's not just Hugh Freeze and the offensive play calling, of which I don't think is going all that well. You've completely lost balance on the road 2 straight weeks. You look at it, I mean, the last 2 weeks, you've ran over 170 plays from the line of scrimmage on the offense side of the football the last 2 weeks. On the road at Texas A&M and on the road at Oklahoma. You've only had 21 carries to your running backs. You completely lost balance, right? You're trying to throw the football when you know you can't pass protect and you know you're not being all that efficient throwing the football. I'm looking at this team and how about you look at the offensive line? And I don't consider myself a genius X's and O's guy. Like, I ain't going to get up here on the chalkboard and lecture everybody on offensive line protections. This is an offensive line that's lost when it comes to picking up second level defenders, when it comes to picking up different stunts and games and it's simple stuff. And we're just letting free runners right at Jackson Arnold. Look, I get Jackson Arnold not letting the ball go. He's clearly a little bit gun shy. This offensive line is doing him absolutely no favors. The reason I have this depth chart open, this offensive line should not be a problem. Xavier Chaplin was considered one of the best tackles in the portal. Mason Murphy was also a very coveted tackle that's played a lot of football at USC. Connor Lew's one of the best centers in the country. Dylan Wade, Jeremiah Wright, Tall Mel. You got a bunch of guys that have played quality football in their careers. But I'm looking at and saying this offensive line is an absolute disaster. The two most important conversations that you have to have when you're talking about firing a head coach is, number one, the results, right? You can only make it so far with subpar results, and Hugh Freeze obviously putting together subpar results. The other conversation is, does it look like it can get better? Is there a feeling? That's how Billy Napier saved his job, right? At the end of 2024, the feeling was, look, there's reason to believe that this program is starting to finally go in the right direction. Have we seen that reason for Auburn? Have we seen any reason to believe that this is going to get back on the tracks? I would argue no, because now, yes, you're doing a lot of flashy things when it comes to talent acquisition, right? But you're not necessarily bringing in great football players. There are a lot of misses when you're evaluating talent in the portal, most importantly at the quarterback spot. So if you continue to be a poorly coached football team, you continue to miss on your evaluations in the portal, and then you're also not winning football games. The results aren't there. The process isn't there. There's no real reason to cling to that this is going to get going in the right direction right now. Now, am I saying we got to fire Hugh Freeze right now? No, I don't think there's any point to do that. You let him try to figure it out in 2025. The main point that I'm trying to get across is that this is a program that is not winning football games under Hugh Freeze, but is also showing very little reason to believe that Hugh Freeze can get this thing going in the right direction because you're missing on your talent evaluations and it continues to be a very poorly coached football team. That's a problem. I would love to hear how the Auburn fans feel. I mean, the quarterback change I know has been thrown around. It sounds like Deuce Knight might not be ready. It sounds like Ashton. Hey, my take would be go see what Deuce Knight can be, right? It can't get much worse than what you just had 177 total yards against Texas A&M. You're averaging 3.8 yards per pass attempt. You might as well try to figure out, hey, what can Deuce Knight be for us over the next couple of years? That's my take on it. But again, I think it goes back to the process that I thought was a good process over the last 2 years. I thought the talent was coming out of this team. It looked right on paper. It ain't coming together. We're missing a lot. The process is off, the results are off. And when you have both of those things off, that's when you start having to have that conversation. That's why we're having it on October 1st. Like I'm rooting because Auburn's such a fun team to talk about. They're really active in the portal. They do a good job on the trail for the most part. I was hoping that Hugh Freeze would get this thing going. Not a ton of a reason to believe, at least as an outsider looking in, that this thing's getting right on the right tracks. Auburn fans, I would love to hear from you guys in the comment section. Appreciate you guys. I mean, through the highs and lows, fan base has always shown a ton of love to the boys. So we appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.